Battle of the Brandons in Mexico City did not deliver yesterday for the main event, but I'll say that Brian Ortega and Yair Rodriguez, the co-main event, did deliver. Okay, and this was a fight to see who is still a contender in the featherweight division. Both of these guys have fought Alexander Volkanovski in the last few years, but Brian Ortega has had to deal with 4 surgeries and several injuries to get back to this spot. He kept his number 4 spot in the featherweight division, which I found kind of strange, but he showed that he's well deserving of it. So let's get right to it, guys. But before we do, be sure to subscribe, guys. I'm the MMA Casual, talk everything UFC and MMA. I'm here to stay. Anyway, let's get right to it. Round 1. Yair Rodriguez doing what he does best, just very predictable yet unpredictable striking. And what I mean by that is that you know that Yair Rodriguez is going to come out, push the pace, and he's going to be throwing unpredictable kicks, right? So very predictable in the sense that he's going to try to strike with you, but he's going to bring his unorthodox approach. So yes, it sounds kind of stupid, kind of an oxymoron that I just got you with, but it's the truth. He's going to come out here, hit you with a spinning heel kick. He's going to hit you with a liver shot from an unorthodox stance. He's going to do all sorts of shit. But I think what ultimately changes the fight, what I think is the most important and underrated aspect of mixed martial arts, is fighter adjustments. So let's get right to it. Round 1. Yair Rodriguez comes out, pushes the pace, and almost finishes Brian Ortega twice. Seems like there was somewhat of a trip initially, but then Yair Rodriguez ultimately catches him, drops him, and he goes big time for the finish. And Yair Rodriguez felt very comfortable because he hops right onto Brian Ortega while he's on the ground, and he thinks that he's the real threat to him, not Brian Ortega fighting from his back. Ultimately, he couldn't get the finish, but what we saw was Yair Rodriguez easily taking round 1 and putting Brian Ortega in a really uncomfortable place. And to mention, while Bruce Buffer was announcing these guys, you see Brian Ortega jumping around and twist his ankle. You know, he hopped on it. After that, he looked kind of comfortable, but just to start off the night, it was not looking his way. So going into round 2, you have that, you know, that sprain potential twist of an ankle that we weren't sure how it affected him. But you go into round 1 and you just see Brian Ortega not look like himself and look like someone who has to battle injuries and ring rust in that octagon. Again, I'm someone who always says ring rust is very real. I don't agree with fighters coming back and, you know, being the same fighter. I just don't think it's the reality usually. You know, you have exceptions like John Jones, who's the GOAT, but most of the time it does not go in the fighter's favor, especially when they're gone with multiple surgeries and coming back to fight the elite of the division. So anyway, Brian Ortega proves us wrong. Round 2, he kind of has these adjustments. Yair Rodriguez shined that a few times, but ultimately Brian Ortega just proves that since their last fight, Brian Ortega has improved in his takedown, yet Yair Rodriguez has remained the same with his takedown defense. I don't feel we've seen a lot of improvement from Yair Rodriguez, but Brian Ortega proved to be dominant in wrestling, which usually, of course, we have his black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to fall back on, but not so much his wrestling and his takedowns. But his trips, his clinches, everything was spot on. I think Brian Ortega put Yair Rodriguez in a really uncomfortable spot in the second round, and he just went full on in the third round where he was ultimately able to take him down and submit him. What does this mean for Brian Ortega? Well, it means he's still a serious contender. Do I feel like any of these guys have any chance against Volkanovski or Topuria? Absolutely not. I think, I'm not going to say it was a lackluster performance. Again, Yair Rodriguez was kind of disappointing, but I think I like the fact that we could say that Brian Ortega's back to where he was. Is he elite? Is he beating any of the top guys? No, but he's here to stay and he's here to contend. There's room for improvement, but it was nice to see him fight. And most importantly, guys, when you're dealing with a guy coming back from injuries, you have to doubt him. But one thing you can't doubt is a guy who's fighting in front of his ex-girlfriend. And that's what happened yesterday. Yes, Tracy Cortez was in the crowd. And if you think Brian Ortega was going to get outstruck, outfought, out anything in front of her, you're absolutely wrong. Brian Ortega, great job. You're back and better than ever. I'm glad to see you there. I hope we get to see a lot more from you. And let me know what you think below, guys. I'm the MMA Casual. Be sure to subscribe.